They call themselves Kriege kids. Kriege comes from Krieg, the German word for war. During World War II, their fathers were prisoners of war in Germany.
This is my father, and it's really one of the only pictures I have of him in his uniform. So I've always been kind of special picture for me.
What was the horror his father went through, Jim always wondered. What traumatized him for a lifetime?
He's researched and worked so hard and tried to find so many answers. And just to be able
To get it verified, just to get it.
They still have so many questions. Their fathers hardly spoke about the war. They wanted to forget what they experienced.
This is a great place of their last night in a barn, their last hunger. My dad talked about how hungry he was every single day.
As children, they could feel their fathers bore a burden. What that was, the Kriege kids now want to discover.
It's emotional to follow in his footsteps and be here. It makes me feel closer to him in so many ways, to have a deep understanding what affected him and what changed his life.
Five U.S. Kriege kids want to walk in their father's footsteps in Europe. Starting in Frankfurt am Main, Germany, they say it is going to be the journey of their lives. 80 years after the end of the Second World War, they, now parents and grandparents themselves, start a trip of discovery deep into the past. Laura has already been doing research in U.S. archives for years.
I wrote this book about my father and his war experiences, and here he is during training. So he joined the military when he was 19 years old and joined the Army Air Force, and there's a picture of him. Soon after he joined, he looked so young to me.
The last mission of her father ended abruptly in the Rhine-Main area.
From scores of aerodromes all over Britain, huge fleets take off on daily schedule to rendezvous at some predetermined Nazi objective.
The U.S. Air Force flew more than 300 missions starting in Great Britain. On May 12, 1944, the 96th Bomb Group's targets were oil production facilities in Czechoslovakia and central Germany. It was his 7th mission. Laura's father, Lawrence Witt, was shot down north of Frankfurt. He almost died. Laura is the eldest of 3 daughters. What did that mean, to be an airman shot down in the middle of enemy territory? U.S. documents had some information on the crash site.
But maybe we were
Somewhere
on a
in the
different
forest
road and
near a
walked
little
in.
village Usingen near
Can you
Frankfurt.
do that?
The Kriege kids have
I don't know
coordinates.
which way.
Now they want to find the exact place.
I've done this before, and it did work, but okay.
David, her brother-in-law, sails and understands coordinates.
Go back.
Laura. It seemed like I was,
Okay.
so he's still
Good.
confident we're on the right track.
Good.
Okay.
Laura and Ellen's father must have been shot down somewhere here. Like 28,000 other American airmen who survived a crash, he became a prisoner of war.
Well, this may be as close as we get. No. Oh, it came down here somewhere, Ellen. It came down somewhere within 100 yards of here.
That was 80 years ago. Nevertheless, they still hope to find some debris.
And what do you have now? Oh, wow.
Wow. Yay.
Ooh.
She says you can put it in your suitcase. This RA, we Googled it. RA, Remington Arms, so that would be a
That's a U.S.
That would be a
shell.
U.S.
US
shell.
shell.
You were
The bullet is
saying.
gone?
Yeah, the bullet's gone.
So he's showing
And
this
one was 30 caliber.
as a machine gun.
But look at this one. That's
Yeah.
not the same
Well, he said it
number.
was from a machine gun.
I was hoping we'd find the site. I never thought that there would be more pieces of that plane.
Yeah.
So it really tells the story. You know, it was here and it did explode, obviously. There's no big pieces left.
See that one.
After the crash, ammunition exploded. A young German mother and her child lost their lives, according to a report of a contemporary witness.
It's such a sad place because 5 people lost their life in that plane, and then 5 became prisoners of war. And then learning, I did not know about the civilians that were killed.
Allied bombers not only hit strategic targets. The citizens of Frankfurt experienced more than 70 bombings. The old town was completely destroyed. At the end of the war, more than 400,000 German civilians were killed by air raids. This caused a lot of hatred and acts of revenge. Many airmen were lynched by German citizens during World War II. They knew they put their lives at risk, but did they truly know how dangerous that was? Hünstetten, a small village 25 miles away from Frankfurt. Together with the other Kriegi kids, Rich hopes to find out more about his father's crash.
Richard, like my father, came down.
They meet Klaus Bücher.
Mein Englisch ist in einer
The favorite hobby of the 72-year-old pensioner and his detector team, Broken Wings, is researching crash sites and detecting debris.
Fine. So, and I will show you a few things what I have found in the last 10 years, let me say so. It's parts of German and American airplanes as well. I suggest that you go 50 meters this direction. There is my garage, and there are parts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dankeschön.
Does someone know exactly where we are right now? Is this Bad Camberg? Is this Lechheim? Is this...
I don't know where we are.
I believe
We're in Germany.
I know we're in Germany.
They have no idea where exactly they are right now, but somewhere nearby, the plane of Richard's father must have come down. They've received a tip that Klaus Bücher might know more about this. He is storing the debris in his garage.
I'd love to see the B-17 parts if I could.
Of course.
But I don't want to take one down and drop it. How heavy is it?
Klaus Bücher has stored the debris according to the type of plane. Richard's father was a radio operator and gunner in a B-17. Could there be a part of his plane in these boxes? Rummaging around here is something very special for the Kriegi kids.
So, do you know where you found these things?
On different places.
So, because my father's plane came down on
These rivets
May 12th, 1944.
identifiable.
Very
The ones we
near.
found
Yeah.
yesterday.
Only 2 people survived.
Yes.
One wing.
Richard's father, Manuel Ruben, was 18 when he joined the Air Force in June 1942. On the 12th of May 1944, he was already flying his 27th mission in a B-17, the famous Flying Fortress. When his plane was hit, Manny Ruben was blown out of the exploding plane. His POW card shows his religion, Hebrew. In Hitler's Germany, Jews were systematically persecuted and murdered. This picture shows 13-year-old Rich and his dad at Rich's bar mitzvah in 1967.
Yeah. Yeah.
About then, I believe, is when it exploded.
And what was the idea to come here to Germany to found these places?
To look and see
Interesting.
where he was, and he was a prisoner of war for a year.
Yes.
So we're going to travel and go to where all of our fathers, several of us here, their fathers were prisoners of war.
Come with me. Let's go on the other side. I will show you
Guys.
my paper.
Every piece of debris tells a story. But is it the story of Richard's dad? Will he eventually get more detailed information?
1, 2, 3 was my dad's.
Klaus Bücher has a list with all American planes that were shot down in this region during World War II. Will they really be able to find the number of his dad's plane?
So that's my dad's plane right there.
76.
Do you see? That's relating to your dad's plane.
The number 4297654 is my father's plane. And it goes straight down. So it says it came down in Uber, Bad Camberg. The pilot was Captain James Knoop. We know that to be correct. And then as you come over here, it's in German, hello, sweetie, yes. And it comes with a cat. And the cat will point out to us that it talks about the motor. And the motor coming down. Yes, yes, you see. So what we have is a paper that he's put together with others. So it's his work and others in the area. He's told us, and they've highlighted in yellow the planes that have come down near, and that they found an engine. He and I were talking about that, so he's very familiar with the engine being found and where it was found and how it was found and who found it. And all of this has been documented very well. It's amazing how well, that they could document all these, and these are all different planes. But there's my father's plane.
The Germans really did find the engine of his father's B-17. The Kriege kids are now heading for Bad Camberg. There, the motor, or what is left of it, is supposed to be stored in a little garage of the fire brigade. They can't wait to see it. Hidden in the backyard, in a small old garage, the remains of a B-17 engine. The plane crashed on the same mission as Laura and Ellen's dad. Together with a local historical club, Alexander Häuser has been researching the history of the crash.
It's most probably one remains of one engine of your father's aircraft. The spot where it was found is right in the middle of the town of Bad Camberg, where your father's aircraft crashed. Yeah.
And no other aircraft that you know of crashed?
Both others are quite clear and documented in the crash reports.
And this part is what?
This is one of the engines, I assume, of the right wing.
Right. But we know his wing was severed, both wings.
The left wing came off, and the German fighter is reported to have crashed in the right wing. I don't know if he sheared the right wing off, but he crashed between the number 3 and 4 engines. That's a report from the German guys, and this is what's left from it.
Wow.
The people of Bad Camberg would actually like to see this engine as part of an exhibition about World War II. But they could not yet agree on the right place.
You didn't expect it.
Oh gosh, how could you expect it couldn't happen? It'd be 1,000,000 to 1. I don't know, I'm not good at that, but I can't imagine coming here and finding an engine. I mean, have you ever? I've never heard of that before. And I just do hope that the engine gets put someplace where they want it. It's great to have it in the garage, it's great to save it, it's great to do those things, but obviously it needs to be somewhere. And I do want to work to see if I can get the Museum of the Mighty 8th Air Force in Pooler, Georgia, to get interested. Let's save it and let's put it on display somewhere where people can see it. And that would be amazing.
That surpasses all the Kriege kids' expectations. And then another wish comes true. They are able to meet a contemporary witness. In the small village of Bechtheim, nearby, Richard's father came down on his parachute. 91-year-old Helga Schuster still remembers the Allied bombers very well.
Rich, nice to meet you, Helga. Thank you for your help. My father was, his plane came down near here on May 12th, 1944,
gab immer Fliegeralarm, wenn die
There were always air raid alerts, she recalls, and she was able to see the bombers attacking Bad Camberg from her attic.
Windows on the roof. She could look out. She saw the flame of the burning bomber, and the parents told them, "You are young. You have to stay." 10 years she was out.
My father came through here. I have evidence of him coming into the town and meeting with the mayor with other soldiers. So what I'm trying to figure out is what would her experience have been if she remembers many years ago, 80 years ago.
She remembers one captured American airman specifically.
Der war jemand am Motorrad angebunden, musste hinterherlaufen, ein Gefangener. Und der ist mit dem Moped gefahren und der muss nachlaufen. Das hat dann so wehgetan, dass der jetzt so hinterherlaufen muss.
I will try to translate that. She remember that a prisoner was catched here and he has to walk behind the motorcycle. You can remember.
And she tells them how miserable she felt for that guy. Then Helga Schuster wants to show them the old mayor's office, just up the street. A special place for Rich. After his dad was captured, he first came here. Rich's wife has found this information in the records.
Elizabeth, I want you in a picture here.
This is fabulous.
Elizabeth has done a lot of the research to help figure out. She's the one that found some of this stuff. No, give me your...
Adventure of a lifetime we're having.
Absolutely.
Next stop in this adventure, Oberursel, north of Frankfurt. For all airmen shot down, that was the first stop of imprisonment. A Dulag, short for Durchgangslager of the German Air Force. This camp was its interrogation center.
So help me with this spot as well. So your dad came
here
and then walked up this street?
Walked up this street, and then they threw him in a cell.
Their fathers had to walk from the train station to the campsite.
Because it was all over here. This was all the Dulag. The buildings are huge. Huge.
So this is the first stop?
This is the first stop.
So pretty sure this is where my dad was then?
Yeah.
They wonder what is left of the former camp. The Kriegi kids are going to meet a local guide.
My name is Sylvia. Hello, everybody. I do tours here through the area. The Dulag is only a short stretch of time because the history of this area actually goes from 1920 till 1993 when the US forces finally left. And when it became a camp, we had the barracks built, the barracks over there.
Right.
We had the Buna, where the debris was investigated down that street here.
For me, being here and just knowing he was here and just to soak up the surroundings is incredible.
Our father hardly ever talked about this experience at all. He didn't want to remember any of it.
Here, in this building, was once the command center.
Go inside.
Let's go. With the meeting.
One of the few remaining buildings. Today, it is a kindergarten.
So, everybody, grab a chair, sit down. But this actually are the original rooms from that area that were used for interrogation.
They stood in this place.
Yeah.
I can remember one thing. He didn't talk about it. None of them did, obviously, but being called out and the German guards taking them in, going, like this, and they were scared to death. They didn't know what was going to happen.
Of course, they were scared. Yeah, and was still, war was going on. They didn't know how much or how far had their troops advanced. Yes. Were they on the winning side? Were on the losing side? So what was going on? So they were like shut off from the world here.
Where kids play today, their fathers once experienced the beginning of their captivity. Before they leave, Jim has a wish.
15th Air Force, 376 Bomb Group, 513 Squadron, B-24.
Wow.
That's a good
That's
place.
Daddy. Here? Let's do here.
Down there.
Let's do here, I know. Here it is. And throw away the key. I wanted to leave something here for him, you know.
That's good.
Jim's father, James Vic Hemphill, joined the Air Force in August 1942. Shot down in February 44 on his 7th mission in Austria. He never liked camping, Jim assumes, probably because it reminded him of his 15-month internment. Since April 1944, for most of the POWs, next stop was another transit camp, Dulag Luft in Wetzlar, 40 miles north of Frankfurt. Traumatized from the crash and interrogation, this was the first chance to recover, taking a shower and eating their first square meal after days, before being transported to camps further east. The Kriegi kids want to know whether anything is left of the camp. Erik Woldert, a young reporter of the local newspaper, and Ernst Richter from the Historical Society of Wetzlar help them to find the spot.
This was the area of the Dulag, and here is nothing left which could tell. I lived here my whole life, and I didn't knew there was a Dulag, and I didn't find anything which leads to that conclusion. But then I saw there inside a few bricks. You can see a little wall of the basement.
There's really not that much to see.
Right here, these bricks. Yeah. That's the Dulag. Or what's left of it anyway. Wow. That's something.
Only a few bricks of a camp where once up to 5,000 prisoners lived. These pictures were taken towards the end of March 1945, after the liberation of the camp. While these Allied airmen were looking forward to going home soon, the fathers of the Kriegi kids still had a very long and daunting way to go. Before they continued to follow their father's footsteps, they planned to make a stopover in Weimar. They visit the memorial of one of the most notorious concentration camps, Buchenwald. The Nazis built it mainly for political prisoners, their guide Mackenzie Lake explains. But there were Jews too, and at the end of the war, also some Allied POWs.
So this was the gate into the main camp. There were two other gates in each corner. This part of the gate was the prison, the so-called bunker in the camp. And inside the bunker were solitary confinement cells. And it was just one of many methods of punishment that were used in the camp. If you choose to go in, you'll see some biographies dedicated to some of the men who died there.
The bunker is one of the few buildings which are left of the concentration camp, the guard room of the SS. 30 cells. To get here, for most of the prisoners, this meant a death sentence.
Remember how Dad always talked about how they slid food through the hole in the door?
Yeah.
Just like this, huh? Yeah. Right. Probably the same.
In the beginning of the internment, the fathers of the Kriegi kids were also in solitary confinement.
And then they have a little peek hole to see what they're doing.
In March 1945, there were more than 100,000 prisoners in Buchenwald, a compound of 33 barracks only a 10-minute ride away from Weimar.
What does it say about the door?
For us, what it says on the gate?
Yeah, so on the gate you see the inscription Jedem das Seine, which comes from the Latin. And if you translate the Latin, it would be to each his own, with a sort of positive connotation. But here it meant more along the lines of everyone gets what he deserves, or to each his own due.
Interesting that it faces in and not out.
Exactly. Jedem das Seine is supposed to be read by the prisoners, because this whole front area was the roll call square, so they would have to see the inscription.
Forced labor and torture determined the daily routine of the prisoners. The first came in 1937. Until the end of the war, 56,000 people were killed here. They built special crematoriums to handle this large number of bodies. Buchenwald was one of 1,000 concentration camps and affiliated camps of forced labor in the territory occupied by Nazi Germany. Did Richard's father know about the fate of Jews in Europe?
I think he knew that something was going on and that Jews were being killed and that people were being killed, and he knew that America had supposedly been attacked. I think he knew all those things, as he entered the war. But I don't think he understood these atrocities.
Most of the POWs could not imagine these atrocities. On the 11th of April 1945, the camp was liberated by the U.S. Army. The Weimar residents were forced to visit the campsite. This film is part of the memorial's exhibition, showing the liberated camp. 21,000 prisoners were left in the camp. Many of them starved to the bones. Hundreds of them died even in the weeks following the liberation.
Oh, goodness. I'm just thinking of how we stop this from ever happening again. That's one thing. And then to see this and to know that maybe our dads experienced a little bit of it is extremely painful. They witnessed it on their march, and then they, of course, suffered cruelty themselves. And that just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart for the world to witness this.
My father did mention he was aware, or he was made aware, that Bergen-Belsen, he didn't know the name of it, but there was a concentration camp. And he said that a guard said something like pointing out smoke and saying, "That'll be you." And that's the one story that he ever said about concentration camps. I don't know how much he knew, but you have to think that Allied airmen shot down throughout the war. They knew news because new people came into the camp that could tell them what they knew. So they weren't totally isolated from the world.
One thing the Kriege kids are certain about, they are proud their fathers helped end these atrocities.
I mean, yes,
Our father joined
for that purpose. Without the Allies, we would not have the freedom we have today. So.
Ellen's father, Joseph Weaver, was 18 years old when he joined the Air Force in 1943. It was on his 52nd mission when he was shot down in May 1944 on the coast of France. This picture shows the family after the war. Little Ellen on the right. The war experience of their fathers has left its mark on the Kriege kids too.
And I'm not sure how the trauma of my father gets passed on to me, but I've always tried to have courage and to do the right thing by people. And he taught me to kill with kindness. Just every time somebody was, hateful or angry with me, just to be kind. And I've always tried to do that.
Ellen's father was also transported to the east. They drive on to Żagań, former Germany in current-day Poland. There was one of the biggest POW camps of the German Air Force. Żagań was a camp for officers only. Richard's father was a technical sergeant. Nevertheless, there are indications he was there as well.
In 1 mile, the destination is on your left, Stalag Luft 3 Prisoner Camp Museum.
Well, I'm not sure what to expect. So this is a very interesting location to me because all of my father's records from the United States say that he went here, to Luft 3 in Żagań. But I'm hoping to find out.
The other Kriege kids have already collected more information. Rich is still at the beginning of his research. Will he find more answers in Żagań? At the museum, Marek, the director, welcomes the Kriege kids.
How are you? Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome to Żagań. Welcome to the POW Camps Museum, Stalag Luft 3, Stalag 8C. Good. Let me show you the museum.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's see the museum.
Thank you.
During the war, over 10,000 Allied POWs were housed here. Americans, British, French, and many other nations.
We found all these items all the time. We found many dog tags. I got, for instance, from Stalag 8 as well. I got an email from lady from France, and she said, I'm looking for some information about my father. I went through my files, and we have his dog tag, because we found his dog tag in the camp the other day.
Were they, this is my father's, were they allowed to keep the dog tags on in the camp?
Yeah, indeed, because we still have these, and it's a clear situation because you have a name on the dog tag, so it's easy to find a man, right? That's the one.
A personnel card was made for each prisoner of war. Richard's father's card is a major clue to his story.
So the only photo from that time, from the war period that I have is from his POW record, and that's it there. Here, you do have, that's his religion, so you do have that, so that's why I say they knew that he was Jewish. He said, well, they did ask towards the end for Jewish soldiers to step forward when they'd call your name. He said we'd have you'd stand in the yard and everybody'd be in line, and they'd say, take one step forward if you're Jewish when we call your name. And I said, did you ever take a step forward? He said, no, I wasn't. I told him name, rank, serial number. I wasn't telling him anything else, and I certainly wasn't stepping forward. I said, did anybody step forward? He said, very rarely, but if somebody did, the whole line stepped forward.
A POW camp. Ultimately, it was the safest place for a Jew in Nazi Germany.
Help me on these cards, because I have my father's card like that, but it doesn't look like that.
That's the name of the camp.
Yeah, and you can't read it.
Kriegsgefangenenlager, and it's a shame we can see of the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
So that part, the key part is
gone.
Is gone. We can also check his pilot, where
James Luke.
Show me the name on
So hold on.
his pilot.
There's a KU.
Okay.
And there's
2
a
minutes.
KU 559. Thank you. It's really interesting to be here. It's it's eye-opening. It's whether my father was here or not. It's moving to be here. It's helping me conclude that it's very unlikely he was in this camp.
His pilot was in West Compound.
Right.
It's him.
Yes.
Yep. May 29th, 1944.
That's the date. That's the date the pilot arrived here.
Yes.
So that would have been 17 days after they were shot down. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really surprising that it took that long.
The drive further to the north of Poland to the Baltic Sea. As the Eastern Front in 1944 drew ever closer, the Germans cleared the camps. Jim's father was in Stalag 6 in Heidekrug. He and 2,000 fellow prisoners were evacuated from there by sea.
And they put him in the bottom of a captured Russian coal scow. It was dark. It was frightening. They could barely breathe. This was one of the worst 72 hours of his whole 15-month experience. And I think it affected him. And for the rest of his life, he fought the villains, I guess. In the middle of the night, he'd wake up fighting, and he was an amazing guy. He was able to overcome early and suppress those memories, but not all his life, and he ended up having a pretty tough time. Yeah, it's gonna be tough tomorrow. Tough right now. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad for it to be cold and a little damp, because it gives us just a little bit of a feeling maybe of what they were dealing with. So.
Next stop in Western Pomerania. Jim's father arrived here in July 1944. Pavel is a historian and researches the fate of the prisoners in Stalag 4 in Tychowo. Jim tells him what he knows of his father.
They got off the train, and there were some large boxes that had Red Cross markings on them, and they thought they were going to get something to eat. But when they got out of the train, the boxes held shackles. And they were shackled together.
Many prisoners who were evacuated from the camp Stalag 6 had been taken their shoes away, Pavel tells them. They had to walk barefoot.
We've been leaving these across Europe, but I don't know what to do with it. But I'm going to give it to you to do what you want to do with it. And so
he says he will find a place in the military museum. After their arrival, Jim's father and his fellow comrades were marched by force up to the camp. The notorious run up the road.
There's people yelling at him and dogs nipping at him. And young Hitler Youth guys stick them with bayonets. They had machine guns set up out here, hoping they would try to
get away?
Hoping they would try to get away so they could shoot them. And some of the guys fell out. They never saw them again. And so, I don't know how any of them survived. They just were scared, tired, hungry. 5,000 miles away from home.
Up the road, on the top, there once was Stalag 4. Today, there is a memorial.
Joe O'Donnell was a friend of my father's. His head's on this monument. They were marching pretty much together. And I don't have more words.
It's very emotional. This has been so important to him. And he's getting to be here and walk on the ground that his father was going. So I'm so glad he got to and do this. He's researched and worked so hard and tried to find so many answers. And just to be able to
get it verified, just to get it.
Thousands of miles away from his U.S. home, Jim now comes closer to his dad than he has ever imagined.
This is my father, and it's really one of the only pictures I have of him in his uniform. And this would have been taken a few months before he was here, but not many months before he was here. So I've always been kind of special picture for me.
Here you can see how the camp was built, Pavel explains. The barracks, the kitchen, and the magazine.
Jak wyglądał obóz, baraki tu można przekazywać, żeby
So you can
obejrzeć.
see how
The historian also had more information about Jim's father.
2-3 tysiące z pilotów, to akurat Staff Sergeant James Hemphill.
Warrant Officer Second Class James Hemphill was mentioned in 3 letters as a prisoner at Stalag Luft 4. He was evacuated from the camp on the Baltic Sea and taken in here. This was one of the most brutal moments for the prisoners of this camp.
It's an important thing to those of us whose fathers endured that. It was a really bad deal, and I'm just glad you know about it. Will you tell Paul we love him?
To chyba pan rozumie. A ja jeszcze nie zacząłem.
I mean it. I mean it. I feel a real closeness to Powwow. He cares about not only the place, but he cares about the men that were here. That means a lot.
In February 1945, this camp was also evacuated. The fathers of the Kriegi kids began a forced march through snow and ice.
This is where we know we're walking literally in Dad's footsteps. He was here on this road twice, for sure.
And I know now that he came in on this path and that he left on this path. And I feel that he was very lucky all the way through this. So he always kind of had a guardian angel maybe on his shoulder.
Almost 1,000 miles, more than 80 days, their fathers were on the road amidst the chaos of the last weeks of the war. In winter, without food, without shelter. They slept in open fields or in barns. The Kriegi kids now can have a look at one of these barns.
There's an opening there. Can we go in?
Yeah. Well, it might be.
Ellen and Laura, the 2 sisters, can't believe it. They really found one of the barns their father slept in February 1945.
I think there are a lot of barns that look like this, but you see some that absolutely.
This has windows. That's why I don't know.
After a 25-mile-long march, their father supposedly spent one of their first nights here.
When I first messaged about coming on this trip, and I made a list of the things that we definitely wanted to see, and I did say, can you find us a barn? Because the whole story of the march was being packed in these barns, tight as sardines, and it just took my breath away to come in here and to think that night after night my dad was sleeping in something like this, and to see the size, to see how it's built. I'm a little overwhelmed by it.
In 1945, their father still had a long way to walk. Next stop was Świnoujście. There, they didn't even have a barn to spend the night. Here, near the port, the men spent 2 nights in the open, in bitter cold.
You are here. So
Okay.
we are here. We want to go here.
Yeah, that's right.
It hasn't left in forever, though.
They must
so.
have used a barge at that time.
From what I've been told, I always had imagined it, and I'm not sure if I was specifically told this, and it as being just some small barge. That's how I've pictured it.
Richard's father was no longer with them at that time. He had already been evacuated from Tychowo before, by train in January 1945, in a boxcar filled to 3 times capacity. Little food and water, but he didn't experience the death march. No one knows why he was transported to another camp in Bat, 100 miles from Świnoujście. The German Air Force had opened this POW camp in 1940. Because of the Geneva Convention, the International Red Cross checked the conditions in all camps for Allied POWs regularly. Nevertheless, especially towards the end of the war, the conditions were very poor. At the end of the war, there were about 9,000 POWs in the camp. Here, the Kriegi kids are greeted by Dieter Bödecker, who works for the local documentary center.
Rich Rubin.
Dieter Bödecker.
Nice to meet you, Dieter.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for meeting us here.
Yeah, no problem. So this was the main camp, part of the main camp, and from the solar panels up to the edge of the forest there was the northern camp with 3 compounds, and now it's agricultural land, but there you could see at those times all the barracks with the Kriegis inside. And if you go to these agricultural to the field, if you find some brickstone parts, you can take one. It is from the foundation of the barracks.
After a year of imprisonment, Richard's father was freed here.
It's been a wonderful trip with great people, but just to learn to understand how these men, I mean, they, besides, falling from the air and being captured, having moved from one camp to another camp and to another, and just not knowing what really was ahead. But it's just to be put through it all.
I've been able to fill in most of the blanks on my father. But to just be here and feel it, it's amazing.
The German guards left the camp April 20th, 1945. After negotiations between the Soviets and the U.S. Army, the POWs were flown out, so-called Operation Revival. Those not evacuated by train were on the death march towards the west. After almost 1,000 miles, they finally arrived in Fallingbostel at the beginning of April 1944, 60 miles south of Hamburg. The last few miles, Laura's father was able to go by train.
My father became very sick, very weak, and he couldn't continue the march. And I understand he was put on a train at Cleese. He came here. He came to this place. He came on a train on these rails. And so, just soaking that up. It's very emotional.
Again, they had to walk from the station. The last mile, Laura's father drags himself on. One more camp.
This is the path that he walked. I know this for sure. One of the things that's not a missing piece of the puzzle. So I'm going to actually follow in his footsteps. I don't think he knew at the time that he would be liberated here, but I think he had hope.
A few broken pieces of concrete are all that's left of a camp where 17,000 POWs were being held captive at the end of the war. Today, this is a residential area.
My dad was not freed here. This is an important moment, and actually, Laura's dad was freed here. Our dads had to go back out for another 100-mile walk.
On April 16, 1945, the war ended in Fallingbostel. When the British Army freed the camp, it was completely overcrowded. The British made film recordings. In the council chamber, the Kriegi kids can see these recordings together with the city representatives and Günther Pankoke, who also still remembers the Soviet POWs.
My father was a railway official, and we lived very near the railway station. I was 10, and I will never forget these scenes. When you see that human bodies were torn out of the wagons, the 30,000 from 41 to 45, that means every day carts full of human bodies were just put into the graves. But these pictures here, the liberation of the camp with all the other prisoners of war, you saw them well fed. Yeah? You just saw the pictures, well fed at the end of the war. But the Russian prisoner of war camp, well, excuse me, please. So many pictures come up. Thank you for listening.
I'd like to thank you for sharing that story. I think it was very painful for you to revisit that time.
We're not going to let this happen again. There's going to be solidarity between our nations and others, and we're not going to let it happen again. Okay? So when you go home at night, I want you to think about all of us younger people and how things are going to get better. Okay? Okay.
3 million Soviet POWs starved to death in captivity or were murdered. Up to this point, the Kriegi kids mainly saw the suffering of their own fathers. The pictures, the stories, the encounters of this trip widened their view. Laura's father was lucky, but the war wasn't over yet for Ellen's father. For many other evacuated POWs, the death march went on. They had been forced to leave just before the British came. Ellen's father marched to Gudow, east of Hamburg. Her dad was liberated on the 2nd of May, 1945, only a few days before the official end of the war. In the little village of Boitze, Ellen found the barn where her father spent the last night of his imprisonment.
I can just imagine him here in the filth of a barn, the fleas and the rats and the cow dung. When he came back, he had to be clean. He took 2 showers a day. So anyway, clean sheets, very important. This is a great place of their last night in a barn, their last hunger. My dad talked about how hungry he was every single day, and that even when they saw the British in Gudow, and he was getting food, he kept 3 potatoes in his pockets, and he did not get rid of those until he had knew the war was over and he wasn't going to be imprisoned again.
The long forced march, the war experience, left traces in their father's lives, internally and externally. Ellen's father was finally freed in Gudow, very close to his last barn.
6.
Germany, say
7.
Achtung!
Achtung! All right.
Detlef von Bülow, her host, has prepared a guided tour through the village. Here, the POWs met with British troops.
Yeah.
Ernst Haag was a child back then. He shows where it all happened.
To be here where all these airmen were liberated and actually walk and then see it myself is very exciting.
If you look at his barn, Ernst Haag, this is his barn. And here we can see the British reconnaissance tank standing on the street.
Ernst Haag wants to say goodbye.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is good. This is good. Because he was right here. And my dad walked right here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're well. So, danke schön.
Bitte schön.
Okay.
Ach, gut. Tschüss.
The journey of the Kriegi kids comes to an end in a very special event. In a memorial service, they, together with local residents, once again commemorate the victims of the war. A young female minister, Vanessa Hoffmann, translates for the Kriegi kids.
Gott über uns, God above us, God uns, God around us.
My puzzle is mostly together. I have a couple pieces still missing, but I'm certainly grateful that he did.
God bless the road you're walking on. God bless the place you're standing on. And God bless the goal you're living for. Amen. Amen.
I just wish my children and my grandchildren were here, you know, because I want them to do this trip as well.
Great experience after reading her book and learning the stories and seeing her photos and things. It does bring closure.
This trip has not only brought the Kriegi kids closer to their fathers.
Unbelievable. I have never in my life appreciated our national anthem as much as I did in that service. It was wonderful and what it meant being here with the German people, and it was overwhelming for me.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Just celebrating the friendship between countries that were once at war. What a beautiful moment. And I think how our dads would feel to know that we were here in this place worshiping together, how happy they would be as well.